Hey guys, welcome to Juicy Tea, where I read out the best stories on Reddit, so you don't have to. They're funny, shocking, and satisfyingly juicy. Today we're looking at BestofRedditor Updates, where a guy is shocked that his fiancée would rather dump him than become his bagmaid. My fiancé wants me to put his family before mine, even at the expense of my family's health. Post by Throwaway. So I, 28 female, got engaged to my partner of 7 years, R, 29 male, in May. Both sides of the family were really happy about this, and we had a big family meal 2 weeks after getting engaged. His brother lives 250 miles away and couldn't be here for the meal, so we decided to have a meal just for his family in late June, when his brother would be back for the weekend. This weekend was arranged long before we got engaged, so he wasn't coming back just for the meal. Earlier this year, my sister Kay, 32 female, got a very serious eye infection that quickly turned into an ulcer, which scarred her cornea and left her at a high risk of perforation. She needs to have a corneal graft, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she'd have to wait until we got back to have it. However, her eye didn't hold, and it perforated the day that I was supposed to be going to the family meal with R's brother. Kay's wife was at work and her phone was turned off, and our mother was away with our stepdad. So when Kay called to let me know what was happening, I knew that she'd be at the hospital all on her own. I immediately talked to my boss, and he let me go early so Kay wouldn't be on her own. I texted R to let him know what was going on, and he texted me back to send Kay his love, and to remind me about the meal that night. I ignored the comment about the meal, as it was the last thing on my mind. Once I got to the hospital, 3 doctors and 2 nurses were rushing around trying to help Kay. I was informed that she needs to have an emergency operation to have her eye glued, or else she'd lose it. The problem was, they didn't have a surgeon at that hospital that could do the surgery, and she needed to go to another hospital, an hour and a half away. They asked if she'd need transportation, or if I could take her. I said I'd take her. Once we got to the other hospital, we were told that she'd be having an operation at 5:30. I knew then that I wouldn't be able to make the dinner, so I texted R to let him know. He flipped out, basically told me to leave Kay at the hospital and have her wife pick her up after the operation was done. Whoa! Massive red flag! At this point, I still hadn't been able to get hold of Kay's wife. I told him that wasn't going to happen, and that he was way out of order to even ask me to do that. I then texted his mum and told her what was going on. She was really supportive and told me to stay with Kay and let her know how the operation goes. A dinner can be rescheduled, Kay's health can't. I also spoke with his brother, who was equally understanding. I stayed with Kay. Her operation was a success, and I got her back home about 9 PM. Her wife had ordered some Chinese and offered me some, which I happily accepted as I hadn't eaten since lunch. With that, I didn't get home until about 11 PM, and I was already asleep. R was cold to me for days after, and we ended up having a huge fight where he told me that I should have put his brother and his family before Kay. What the F? Why? What's his logic there? Why does his family meal trump your family's medical emergency? That's actually insane. He said he was embarrassed about having to go to the meal without me. I responded that I was embarrassed that he thought I should put a meal before my own sister's health. This led to another week of awkwardness between us before we finally sat down and sorted it out, or so I thought. 8 weeks ago, Kay got her graft, and so far everything is going really well. On Saturday his brother was here, so we all went out for dinner with his family. His family were all asking about how Kay was doing, and I showed them a picture of the stitches in her eye. Ugh, at dinner? I thought that everything had gone really well until we got home, and he just got really angry, saying that I shouldn't have brought up Kay's health issues, and that I shouldn't have shown them the picture. Yeah, I kind of agree with him about the picture. At dinner? Seriously? Ugh. I argued that they'd asked about her, and asked to see the picture. It ended with him telling me that I need to put him and his family before Kay, or else we weren't going to work. His family will always come before mine once we're married, so I should get used to it. I went upstairs and packed a bag. How exactly did he think this was gonna go? I'm now at my mum's house. He's been bombarding me with texts and calls since I left. I do love him, but I will never put his family above my own family's health. I feel like he's expecting me to spend every holiday with his family and put their wants above my family's needs, which won't happen. I'm very close to my sister and my mum. That's not gonna change. So I don't really know how to move forward, or if I even want to. Has anyone experienced anything like this before? If so, how did you deal with it? Update. I decided to end things with him. I knew the main issue would be getting him out of my house. I own the house outright. My grandmother died 5 years ago and left her house to my mum, who sold it and split the money between me and my sister. I then bought the house with that money. I got an eviction notice drawn up for Friday, so that he could have the weekend to sort through his emotions before work on Monday. On Friday morning, I texted R and asked him to meet me at our local pub after work. He quickly agreed. Not only is it a public space, but my stepdad and a few of his work friends go in there every Friday after work, so I knew he'd be there if I needed him. When I got to the pub, I got straight to the point. I told him that it was over, that I couldn't be with someone who didn't give me any support when I was going through one of the scariest moments of my life and expected me to drop my family for his. It didn't matter what excuses he came up with, I wasn't interested. I'd made my mind up and we were done. He stared at me in shock for what felt like an hour. He then started saying that I couldn't be serious, that we'd been together for 7 years and I was throwing it all away, that I could never find another guy like him. Good, this guy's insane. How is he so shocked? I responded by saying, I don't want another guy like you. That's why I'm ending it. I need someone who will support me when times get tough, not get annoyed that the world isn't bowing down to what he wants. I then handed him an envelope with the eviction notice and my engagement ring. I told him I was giving him a few weeks to find a place and be out of my house. I then stood up and walked over to my stepdad, who'd bought me a very much needed drink, and stayed with him until my ex left, still looking shocked. I knew that he wouldn't approach me while I was with my stepdad, as he's always been a little bit scared of him. Once I got back to my mum's house, I had a single text from him saying he wasn't moving out and was going to contest the eviction until I'd come to my senses and got back with him. We are not over, was how he ended the text. That's not how this works. You can't just be like, nope, I reject your rejection. We're still a couple. Scientists need to study this man's brain. This is so weird. I just turned off my phone and decided to deal with the legal side of things on Monday. Saturday morning, I woke up and turned my phone back on and had another text from him saying he would move out if I paid him $10,000, as that's what he paid towards the bills whilst living at the house. What the hell? Dude, you're living rent-free. If anything, you owe her money. He paid for half the electric, gas, Wi-Fi, and Sky package. Note the Sky package is because he had to have every sports channel known to man, so his half literally just paid for sports channels. I'd already asked my lawyer about this, and he reassured me that I didn't owe him anything, as he hadn't contributed to a mortgage or any renovations of the house. It was just general expenses. Yeah, if this is how it works, I want my landlord to pay me back for all the utilities I've used when I move out too. Let's say I was irritated by this, and I decided to ring his mum to see if she could talk some sense into him. She was appalled by what I told her, and said she'd speak to him. She called me back about an hour later, and asked me to meet her at the house. I was away to watch his football team play, and wouldn't be back until 10 PM, so I knew he wasn't going to be there. I met her at the house, and she said she'd have him out of there by the following afternoon. She then asked me to walk her through the house and show her exactly what was his and what wasn't, so he didn't take anything that didn't belong to him. How is his family so normal and decent while he is batshit crazy? The next morning, I got a text from R, calling me every name under the sun for getting his mum involved. Wow, you dubbed my mum! I blocked him, and a couple of hours later, his mum texted me to let him know that he was out and staying with her. I thanked her, and she told me that she would like to stay in contact, and I happily agreed. I've changed the alarm code, and my stepdad changed all the locks for me. He's also installing cameras outside the house. On Tuesday, R's mum rang and asked if we could meet up, as she had some things she wanted to tell me. So we met up for lunch. She told me how her ex was a controlling a-hole who was incredibly selfish, and this selfishness is what she'd seen in R for so long. Oh, so he learnt it from his father. It all makes sense now. She'd left his dad after he'd punched R's brother in the face when they were kids. He had never laid a hand on her or their sons before, but one time was enough and she left with the boys. Her ex had never reached out to speak to the kids and they hadn't spoken in years. However, she found out on Sunday night that R was back in contact with his father and had been for the past year. His dad had been putting a lot of thoughts in R's head about how he is the man of the house and his family is all that matters. This fed into R's selfish tendencies and had amplified them tenfold. But surely he saw how his father lost everything and hurt his family by acting that way. That attitude didn't work for him, so why is R so shocked that it didn't work for him either? Then R and his brother had a huge argument that ended with his brother telling him that as long as R is in touch with their dad, he'll have zero contact with him. Even going so far as to telling him to spend Christmas with their dad because R isn't welcome at his house. When his mum didn't back him up, R flew into a rage and said he'd move in with his dad. He left the house, but then came back a couple of hours later, looking like he'd been crying. Turns out, his dad didn't want him living with him. He could be on the streets for all he cares. He's not putting a roof over a grown man's head. R's mum said she thinks R is now starting to realize everything he's lost due to him listening to his dad and has seen his dad's true colours. She's incredibly disappointed in him, but he is her son, so she's trying to be there for him as best as she can. However, she still wants him out of her home as she doesn't trust him anymore. His brother still won't have anything to do with him. She's also told him to stay the hell away from me as I don't need to be brought into any of this, and he's promised her he will. Only time will tell if that's true, but I have blocked him on everything, and if he turns up at the house, I'll just call the police. I never want to see him again, if I can help it. So all in all, R's life is ruined, but as long as he stays the hell away from me, I don't really care. Kay's doing great. She had a hospital appointment on Monday, and a consultant said that her eye is healing, in his words, marvellously, so that's relief. Update 2. I hadn't heard from R in weeks, but yesterday, he showed up at my house. I had the chain on my door, so I opened it with that still attached. No way I was gonna let him in. He basically told me that he has nowhere to live, his mum isn't speaking to him, and his dad won't put a roof over a grown man's head. His words, not mine. He asked if I would take him back, or at least let him live with me. No way in hell I was gonna get back with him, and getting him out the first time only went easy because his mum stepped in to help. Remember, he had threatened to take me to court, knowing that if he did, it could take months to get him out, and then said he'd only move out if I gave him $10,000. I told him there was zero possibility of him ever living with me again, and that we were 100% over. He started shouting at me and calling me all sorts of names. So I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave, and shut the door. I have cameras all over my house, so I caught everything he did and said on camera, and I've saved it to a USB just in case. He then went crying to all our mutual friends, and it managed to get back to his mum. She called me and asked what happened. I told her, and she then informed me that she'd put her house up for sale and was moving 300 miles away to be closer to her other son. Her and I had a huge argument about this, and she finally kicked him out. Since then he's been couch surfing, but with Christmas coming up, his friends want him out. He's been kicked out of 3 friends' houses in 10 days. His mum told me I was right to refuse him, but I've had other friends say that they feel sorry for him, and that I could just let him stay in my spare room until he's back on his feet. I then asked them to put him up. They said they would, but don't have room, and if they had a spare room like me, they would of course let him stay. My family and his are on my side, but I'm starting to doubt myself with what a couple of my friends have said. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? What? No! Why are they even still friends with him? Do they know what went down? He lost any chance of a sympathy room when he refused to leave the first time. Update 3. I've just spoken with the wife of one of our friends. Apparently, I stayed with them for 2 nights before she kicked him out, and there's more going on than I knew. She told me that I shouldn't let him anywhere near me, and that he's staying in a B&B, so he does at least have a roof over his head right now. I'll call her N and her husband Z. I rang Z on Thursday morning, saying he had nowhere else to go, and could he stay with them for a few days. Z spoke to N, and they agreed that he could stay in their guest room. I went to the house after work, and they had a long talk where I told them that he had a flat lined up, but couldn't move until January. Zedinen agreed to let him live with them until January, as long as he followed some basic rules and paid for his own food. The rules were things like no bringing women back there, and if he went out drinking, he had to be quiet when he got back so he didn't wake their daughter, who's 6. He agreed to all of this and paid for Chinese for them all that night. The very next day after work, I went to meet his dad in the pub for a few pints. When Zedinen went to bed, I still wasn't home. They were woken up at about 2 AM in the morning by R arguing with a woman. Apparently, I had met this woman in a bar, took her back to ZNN's house, got his pleasure, and then told her to get dressed and F off once he was done. She got angry, which started an argument where I was saying some horrific things to her. N took the woman downstairs and got her a taxi, while C stayed upstairs arguing with R. One day, he found a sympathy bed and couldn't hold it together for one day. Once N had gotten rid of the woman, she went back upstairs and tried to calm Zed and R down. At this point, I decided to take out his frustrations on N, calling her a bitch and telling her to go do something useful and make him a sandwich, before bursting out laughing like he'd made the funniest joke ever. This made Z lose it. He pinned R against the wall by his throat. Side note, R isn't a fighter at all, whereas Z was an amateur boxer in his youth and can handle himself. N managed to get Z to let him go, and I was shoved into a guest room and told to sleep off the alcohol. It's a miracle that their daughter didn't wake up during this. The next morning, N got their daughter ready and went to her mum's house, after telling Z to get R out of their house. Z agreed, and after N left, he woke R up and told him to pack his stuff and leave. I tried to apologise and begged to stay, but Z was having none of it and kicked him out. Going off the timing, I think he left there and came straight to my house. On Sunday, Z messaged R to meet up to talk. Z's been friends with R since they're 11 and has never seen him act like this, so he wanted to find out what was really going on. He managed to finally get the truth out of R. Basically, R's been in contact with his dad for a lot longer than he told us. By this point, it's been over 2 years. His dad is a raging misogynist that believes a woman's place is in the kitchen and the bedroom, while a man's place is to rule the house and be waited on hand and foot, as well as deciding who can and can't be in their lives. He's been dripping this poison into R's ear and it's really taken a hold of him. Zed told N that he just doesn't recognise R anymore. R wants to start living his life the way his father told him he should. Zed pointed out that R's dad is 62, living in a shitty one-bedroom flat, hasn't had a real relationship since R's mother left him, has no friends, and his family doesn't speak to him. That he's the type of guy that when he walks into a pub, people finish their pints so they can leave and get away from him. R was furious. He told Z that his dad was just misunderstood. Z said no, people understand his dad, that's why they stay away from him, he's toxic. This pretty much ended their conversation, and I left. Z did find out that R does have a flat lined up for January, so that was true, and that he's found a B&B that he can stay in until the flat is ready, at minimal cost. Z and N have also decided to go no contact with R, as they don't need that toxicity in their life, especially not around their daughter. All of this just made my resolve stronger that he will not be getting anywhere near my house ever again. I honestly don't get it. He lost everything. His home, his relationship, his family, some of his friends. Heck, he even sees the life his dad is living now. And yet, he still sees nothing wrong with the way he's acting and the decisions he's made. You'd think that a person whose life has gone to shit in such a short amount of time would do a little introspection and ask themselves if that's really the best for them. Not him though, he's doubling down for some reason. I'm currently at my sister's and we're gonna watch a Christmas film to get us in the mood to decorate all our houses for Christmas. Merry Christmas everyone! If you like this video, please let me know and subscribe for more juicy tea.